Everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Facebook page. My name is Todd Schmidt. I am the village administrator in Waunakee and am just about to finish up my term as the president of the League. Before I jump into my fun interview today, I just want to thank everybody for the honor of serving as the league president this past year. It truly has been an honor. I've enjoyed it. And I look forward to continuing my relationship with all of you in the league. So I'm Mayor Justin Nichols from Manitowoc will keep things humming along. He'll do a great job. So with that said, here we are. This is my final installment of a video series that I've hosted on the topic of humility in leadership. And I've interviewed some pretty interesting people, and I saved quite the interesting person for last. Welcome, Steve King.
Thank you, Todd, very much. It's good to join. Good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you too. So a little bit. So Steve and I go back a ways. I was, before being the administrator in Waunakee, I've been here for 11 years. I spent 8 years as the city administrator for the city of Milton down by Janesville. Steve owned a chemical company in Milton called Toma Products, right?
Named after another great Wisconsin city.
There you go. And Steve owned the business and also served on Economic Development Corporation for the city of Milton. And we collaborated on municipal projects. And in that process and time, we admired one another and became good friends. And I'm happy to consider Steve a lifelong friend of mine. So what did I miss? That's good on our background, right? But what did I leave out about your interesting past, Steve?
Well, it's been, as you well know, Todd, it's been somewhat varied, but professional life, I guess, for me started many years ago as a teacher, as an educator. I was a high school teacher for about 4 years. I then moved into the career in law enforcement, what I thought would be a career in law enforcement as an FBI agent. But that didn't last but a few years. And then I became an investigator for the United States government, specifically working for the United States Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, which was a subcommittee of the Senate Government Operations Committee. As an investigator, our mission was to ferret out waste, fraud, inefficiency, crime, whatever in the government, which was an easy task, unfortunately, in too many cases. Then I left Washington and went back to my alma mater, my university alma mater, as a alumni director and a development guy, raising money for the university. That didn't last a long time, and I finally pursued what I thought was going to be my saving grace in life, and that was to go in business. And that brought me to Wisconsin. And so for the last 45 years, I have been a businessman, entrepreneur in Wisconsin. And then most recently, by virtue of a passion I have, I was blessed to become a representative of the United States as a United States ambassador in the Czech Republic in Prague for the last 3 years, returning here to the United States this past January.
So that brings me to what became a really interesting part of your story. Maybe let's break the ice a little bit and get to a question that a lot of people I bet wonder. It kind of seems like this, the State Department and this U.S. ambassador thing is sort of a mystery to many. Where do ambassadors come from? What do they do? How do they become that? So how about this? I'll just ask this: how does somebody become a U.S. ambassador? Do you have to know the right people? Do you have to, how does that play out?
Well, knowing the right people is certainly part of it, Todd. I'll try to make this as quick as I can. We have probably about 192 or 3 embassies across the world, represented pretty much in every country in the world, each of which, of course, is led by an ambassador. You become an ambassador representing the United States in a nation's capital two ways. There are two classes of ambassadors. There are career ambassadors, who are in effect civil servants. They're foreign service officers who became employed in the State Department many, many years ago and began climbing the ladder professionally, with their ultimate goal presumably being to become an ambassador. And they occupy, probably of those 192, they probably occupy 75, 80% of our US embassies. And then the balance are non-career ambassadors, which is the politically correct way of saying these are politically appointed ambassadors. For example, most of the embassies in Europe, which is clearly the most important region in the world to the United States from a foreign affairs standpoint, most of the ambassadors in Europe are non-career ambassadors, i.e. they are appointed by the President of the United States, don't necessarily have to bring any previous diplomatic experience to the job at all. They, in some form or shape, were lifted up to the president, who, after some consideration, presumably, appoints them to a particular post. So, as I said, most of the capitals of Europe are occupied by politically appointed ambassadors, which typically change almost across the board without any question with a change in administration. So I resigned my post as US ambassador to the Czech Republic effective noon on January 20th of this year, 2021, at the time that Joe Biden, of course, was sworn in as president. You either resign in advance of that, which is the appropriate thing to do, or if you don't resign, you risk and most likely will be recalled by the incoming administration. So I was fortunate enough to be chosen by President Trump to become the ambassador to the Czech Republic, which really was not something that I had necessarily was desirous of or had in mind at all. When we have more time or another venue, I can tell exactly, specifically how that happened. It was rather interesting, but anyway.
You are good friends with Paul Ryan. I know you guys have built a really good relationship. I assume that relationship was
well, it was probably helpful, Todd, but no, it was actually my relationship with a gentleman by the name of Reince Priebus.
Oh, yeah.
From Kenosha, Wisconsin, who, as you may recall, around the holidays of 2016 and 17, was named as the first chief of staff to then incoming President Donald Trump. Reince and I, like yourself, go back many, many years in Wisconsin. And I was attending, I guess I'm going to get into the quick story. I'll try to make it quick. I was attending the inauguration of President Trump in January of 2017 and was visiting with Reince. And he said to me, "So what do you want to do?" I said, "What do you mean what I want to do? I'm happy. I'm here to enjoy the inauguration. I'm going back to Wisconsin and get on with my life." He said, "Wouldn't you like to be an ambassador or something like that?" And I said, I never even thought about it. Why? He said, "Well, he owes you." He said, "He doesn't owe me anything." He said, "No, he owes you." As you may recall, I was asked by Reince, and I spent a year and a half of my life in Cleveland, Ohio, putting together and running and managing the Republican Party's presidential nominating convention, which nominated President Trump. So I said, "Well," and he asked me, "Where would you like to go if you were ambassador?" And I said, "Czech Republic." And he said, "Czech? You're not Czech." I said, "No." I said, "Have you ever been there?" I said, "No." Why Czech?" I said, "Well, you may recall that we have a mutual friend named Rick Graber, and a Milwaukee attorney, who at the time was president, or I mean, chairman of the Republican Party. And he was chosen by George W. Bush to be ambassador to the Czech Republic. Rick came back to Milwaukee, and subsequently we'd be together, and he would talk about what a great country, what a great people, what a great house to live in. And that was in my mind at the time that Reince asked me this question. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks after that, and I got a call from Reince saying, "You're going to the Czech Republic." And I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "I simply put in front of the man in the Oval Office after, had you been in for a couple of weeks, this is the man we'd like to be your ambassador to the Czech Republic. And he said, he immediately asked, who the hell is he? And Ryan said, he's the man that chaired the convention that nominated you to become president of the United States. And with that, President Trump, in that scribbly signature, signed the authorization for me to be ambassador.
Interesting. Well, we're all out of time, Steve. We'll see you next
Sorry
week.
about that. You asked the question.
No, that's good. I did. I dug in. So, so I want to jump into some humility stories. And my wife and I had the privilege of actually firsthand experiencing, or I should say, witnessing some of your humility in action. We, because of our friendship and a trip my wife and I had planned to the Czech Republic, I reached out sort of through Facebook to your embassy, finally up to you, and said, hey, can I take you out to dinner when we're in town? You did us one better and invited us to be your guests at the residence and spend some time with you,
right,
with some of your official duties. And that was a remarkable honor, and what a joy for us that we'll never forget. So thank you again.
Well, that was your house now, by the way, Mr. Taxpayer. You own that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So there were a couple of stories I remembered when we spent those few days with you. And maybe you could reflect on these and connect it to humility a little bit. There's a story you told me about how the president of the Czech Republic had sort of encountered a sour relationship with the prior ambassador, and that sort of severed to some extent that relationship. And you were able very early in your tenure to reconstruct it. Can you give us a snippet of that story?
Yeah, well, my predecessor, Andy Shapiro, who's from Chicago, an attorney in Chicago, and a good man. I like Andy, but somewhere halfway in his tenure there as ambassador, he said something that was picked up by the press, and it regarded the visit by the then president and current president of the Czech Republic, Miloš Zeman, who was pretty sympathetic, well, let me put it, with Russia. He grew up in the Czech Republic under communist rule, and he was invited by President Putin to attend the May Day ceremonies in Moscow, in Red Square, and he did. And there was pictures taken of him sitting very close to Putin as the parade was going by, which reached the Czech press, and of course. And Andy said something to the effect, well, it's a shame that your president is seen sitting next to this autocratic leader of this country. That was picked up in the press, unfortunately for Andy. And upon his return, President Zeman learned of this and announced publicly that he was closing the castle doors to the American ambassador. And they remained closed to the ambassador until I arrived. And upon my arrival, I thought about it a lot, and it just wasn't going to be work when I didn't have access to the president or the prime minister. The prime minister was fine. And Andy kept a good relationship with the then prime minister. So in my initial meeting with the president, which is what all new ambassadors do, you must present your credentials to the constitutional head of the government. So it's quite a ceremony, very humbling, which I did. And then there's a short visit with the president, in this case, shortly thereafter. And in that visit, I decided to tell the president that I would not endeavor to, as the representative of the greatest democracy in the world, to lord, and they were a young democracy themselves, to lord over them. And that I would never criticize him or his country publicly, but that I specifically reserve the right to be able to come to him mano a mano and talk to him about any concerns I had. And we shook hands. And within a couple of days after my arrival, he called a press conference and said that the castle doors of the president were now reopened to the United States ambassador.
I mean, that, and maybe to you that doesn't necessarily scream humility. To me, it does, though, because you sort of took the approach of you would want similar treatment. Treat others as you'd want to be treated yourself, right?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah. Well, that was a great start for you there. As Tanya and I remember one day while we were it might have been our first night at the residence. You gave us a tour of this beautiful mansion, and
Your house.
yeah, yes, right, yes, ours. And we were actually down into the lower level of the facility, and you took us, you took us around every little corner. It was so cool. But we actually were into the housekeeping quarters where they do laundry,
Right.
clean the sheets, do all that stuff. And Tanya and I noticed in the corner of the room there were these easels set up, and there were translated Czech language words into English all over these easels. And we're like, what's that all about? Can you share with everybody watching and listening what that was about?
Yeah, well, the maids, there was 4 or 5 of them, had this room where they did some work, but they also ate their lunch, things like that. And these were people that had been serving the ambassador's residence there for probably, in some cases, 20 years. Their English was very broken, and in a couple cases was very difficult to communicate with them without a translator present. But I was told by the resident manager that they had a desire to learn English better, but they just couldn't afford it to go to classes. So I just said, well, look, if you'll find the instructor, and that the instructor makes himself available to all of them in those quarters that you saw, I will pay for it. And so they began conducting classes, English classes, in their break room, if you will, 3 times a week. And it made a dramatic improvement in the 3 years I was there in our ability to communicate with them.
And this was not the government. You personally.
Yeah, no, I personally did.
You personally paid for that. And I know you're not asking for a pat on the back or anything in doing that. It was a very human element to the relationship that you built with your team there.
It just improved our ability to communicate with people.
Nice. So those are a couple of things I remember, but that was a very top level authority position, and you've been in that same position privately as well in your business and running a business. What do you think are some of the leadership skills or traits or habits that you have that you think have served you the best or allowed you to care for others the best?
Yeah, well, I'm an entrepreneur and businessman, as you well know, Todd, but my passion was always politics and partisan politics, I'll confess. But my most respected president in my lifetime was Ronald Reagan, who I thought was a pretty humble man himself. And he once said, there's no limit to the amount of good that a person can do if you're not really concerned about who gets the credit. I've tried, I remember that for the last 30, 40 years, and I've tried to live and lead with that particular quote in mind. I have found that the less you become concerned about yourself, the more it elevates those who are around you, whether they're working for you or whatever. And again, I think that goes to what that key ingredient that you've lifted up in the last year, which is humility in leadership.
Interesting that you mentioned selflessness. That's a topic in my prior interviews that I've had a couple people use that term as part of their approach in looking at leadership and the traits that do lead to humility in leadership. So
that's the only way I think the effective leader is going to achieve some good, is to be humble.
Yeah, very good. So here, our audience today, Wisconsin has 600 plus cities and villages. So you've got appointed officials like me, and then you've got elected officials like Nate Bruce. It was when you were in Milton, the mayor. Anyway, if you were by the way, the new mayor is Anissa Welch. Did you ever know Anissa when you were there?
No.
Anyway, she's doing a great job. She's on the league board too. So shout out to
Good luck to you. Keep up the good work.
Keep it up. Anyway, what wisdom would you want to impart upon us as we sort of close our comments here to us municipal leaders? Do you have a parting point of wisdom?
Well, first of all, if I were talking to all of them in one particular setting, I would first congratulate them because in my belief, the best government is local government. It's most impactful and most successful. And I congratulate them on leading the same. But again, another humble president quote comes to mind, that being Abe Lincoln, who said something to the effect that most people, most men can deal with adversity. But if you really want to test the character of a man or a woman, put him in power. Leaders of local governments are in power, and I trust that they know that they're being tested, and you are being tested by the people. And if I were, I think when we talked earlier, you said, could you put it in a word? That's very difficult, of course. But if I had to, it would be try to take the word I out of your leadership vocabulary and replace it with we.
Good advice. All right. I've got one closer topic that I think is gonna work well for us. I know is a passion of yours. I saw it on display in the Czech Republic when we visited. Certainly, an element of humility is bestowing honor upon others, honoring others. And when Tony and I joined you on a work obligation of yours to the city of Pilsen. And we were there for a freedom festival to celebrate the liberation of the city, which the United States military was a part of. And that was part of Patton's army successes there. And when we were there, it was a big part of your job was to honor the veterans that were still in existence and remembering their stories. Can you just share one final closing thought for us on how important, why it is so important to honor and remember the veterans that served us both here and their work abroad, and how that affects the global community?
Well, thanks, Todd. Yeah, all an American has to do, and you did it, is walk the streets of Pilsen, then Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, and speak English along the sidewalk. Invariably, someone will come up to you and in very broken English say, thank you. They're probably going to be 70 something, but they remember. And it's very heartwarming. For the 3 years I was there, I always went to Pilsen in May, which is, May of 1945 is when General Patton's Third Army liberated Pilsen. And most people don't know this, but they know, they've watched the Patton movie. It was in Pilsen that General Patton received word from the commanding officer of Allied forces, General Eisenhower, and said, stop. Patton's Third Army was racing around Germany and raced into Czechoslovakia and was liberating town after town. It was in Pilsen that he was actually told to stop. Why? Because the three Allied leaders, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin, had agreed that the Soviet Russian Red Army would liberate Eastern and Central Europe. In retrospect, a terrible mistake. And it was in Pilsen that Patton made his famous statement, well, I can kick their, back to Moscow if you want me to. And he said, no, you'll stop there. And that decision really turned Eastern and Central Europe gave them 48 years of communist rule, which in retrospect was a terrible mistake. But the people of Pilsen have not forgotten. And it's interesting you should raise this, Todd, because just 2 days ago, a gentleman, wonderful man by the name of Colonel Ingram, who attended every May, came over to the United States because he was one of Patton's people that liberated that town. And he celebrated that just 2 days ago, he died. He's the last surviving veteran that took part in the liberation.
There's Steve. I just brought up his picture there.
Oh, yep. There's Earl. And every 3 years, I would spend some time with him. He had a great message for the Czech people there. It was considered probably as much a hero as General Patton himself in Pilsen. So it's just wonderful to hear his story and to hear the people from Pilsen, from the mayor on down, how much respect they have for the United States and the United States military who liberated them in 1945.
So I think it'd be fair to say that you would agree with me that to the extent that we continue to honor the veterans who perform that service is our best ability to help others remember the successes and trials accurately, because that's the true history. As I also learned, there's work to twist history for the benefit of others, and our remembering our veterans is important to that.
Indeed it is. And it's just so heartwarming to be there in May of 45, May of any year. And I encourage anybody that's going to be in that part of the world to do it, because you get a true feel of how important and what a contribution those veterans made to a free people.
Well, Steve, thank you for your service for those 3 years as ambassador.
Well, thank you for yours.
I know that you were well regarded there. I congratulate you on that service, and thanks for your time with us today.
My pleasure.
Some good
luck
words
to you, Todd.
I appreciate our friendship, and again, I appreciate all my league friends that have supported me during this year as president of your league. So, good day, be well, and God bless all. Thank you, Steve.